Even if you're more into growing food than flowers in your garden, there's one flower that's absolutely worth growing. This powerhouse flower is called sweet alyssum, and it does much more than just look pretty. In this video, you'll learn why sweet alyssum is such a valuable garden plant and how to grow it from seed to bloom. So, let's start with the why. One of the biggest reasons smart gardeners grow alyssum is its ability to attract certain insects. Pollinators love it, but that's only part of the story. Some of its most important visitors are actually the beneficial insects that help keep garden pests in check. Commercial organic growers know this better than anyone. And in places like California, sweet alyssum is a common sight on organic vegetable farms. But it's not just anecdotal evidence that supports the use of sweet alyssum on farms. Researchers have been studying alyssum for years, and the results are impressive. Several studies have shown that sweet alyssum is exceptionally good at attracting hoverflies. In one study, it attracted more hoverflies than any of the other 8 annual flowering plants that were tested. In another study, lettuce grown with alyssum had about 6 times as many hoverfly eggs as lettuce grown without it. Now, the reason researchers are so interested in hoverflies is that they're much more than just pollinators. While the adults feed on nectar and pollen, their larvae are voracious predators of aphids and other tiny garden pests. In fact, a single hoverfly larva can consume hundreds of aphids. But hoverflies aren't the only pest-controlling insects attracted to sweet alyssum. Studies suggest that beneficials like ladybugs and parasitic wasps may also have a soft spot for alyssum. But attracting beneficial insects is only half the battle. The other half is keeping them in the garden. And that's where sweet alyssum really shines. Unlike many insectary flowers that only bloom for a short time, alyssum can flower for months on end. And that means a steady supply of nectar and pollen, which helps support beneficial insects throughout the entire growing season. Beyond its ability to attract beneficial insects, sweet alyssum has several other things going for it. For example, it's technically edible and has a slightly peppery flavor, similar to garden cress, which is not surprising given that it belongs to the same plant family. While you can eat both the flowers and the leaves, it's the flowers that are most often used in the kitchen, usually as a garnish. Sweet alyssum also works really well as a flowering ground cover. While it won't completely block weeds, it does a good job of covering bare soil and filling gaps. Having a living mulch like this can help shade the soil, keeping it cooler and reducing moisture loss. And as far as flowering ground covers go, not many can match sweet alyssum for its long bloom season and for the sweet honey-like scent that fills the air when you plant it in masses. Besides growing well in the ground, sweet alyssum also does well in containers, where it's often used as a filler among other plants. And whether you plant it in the ground or in containers, here's another great thing about sweet alyssum. It self-seeds really easily. That means you get to enjoy those lovely blooms year after year, without having to start from scratch every season. So while it's technically an annual, it feels more like a perennial plant in the garden. Before we look at how to grow this incredible plant, there's one more interesting thing worth talking about. And that's flower color. White is the most common color, though varieties with purple and pink blooms are also widely available. The classic white varieties are generally considered the most fragrant, and they also tend to self-seed most readily. All varieties will attract a range of beneficial insects in the garden. That said, many hoverfly species seem to like white blossoms in particular. So now that you know what makes sweet alyssum such a useful garden plant, let's take a look at how to grow it. Sweet alyssum is one of the easiest flowering plants to grow from seed. In most climates, it can be sown directly in the ground after the last hard frost. Light frosts aren't usually a problem since it's considered a cool season annual. In fact, it actually performs best in slightly cooler weather. In regions with mild winters, you can even sow it in fall for winter and early spring blooms. While you can sow alyssum directly in the ground, starting your seeds in a container has a few advantages. First, it lets you get a head start, as you can sow indoors weeks before the conditions outside are suitable. Starting in containers also makes it easy to give your seeds the ideal conditions for germination and to keep an eye on them as they grow. Plus, growing seedlings in a container makes it easier to protect them from slugs and other pests while they're at their most vulnerable stage. In this video, we'll be using a single container to start multiple seeds. This way, we won't be wasting pots or soil if some of the seeds don't germinate. One larger container also holds moisture better than several small pots. With alyssum, that's especially helpful because the seeds are sown on the surface, making them prone to drying out. Now let's get everything set up for sowing. Start by filling your container with a good quality seed starting mix. With tiny seeds like alyssum, a finely textured mix works best. Gently press the mix to create a firm surface. If the mix is too loose, those tiny seeds may sink too deep into the cracks and struggle to germinate. Now water the soil thoroughly. You'll want to do this now before sowing, so the seeds don't wash out of place. Since alyssum seeds are so small, it can be difficult to control where they land. But here's a simple trick that helps. Take a piece of folded paper and a toothpick, and use them to place the seeds exactly where you want them. Once they're in place, gently press the seeds into the mix to ensure good soil contact. Don't cover the seeds with soil as alyssum seeds need light to germinate. Now give them a quick mist with a spray bottle. It's also a good idea to cover the pot with plastic to retain moisture, as surface-sown seeds dry out easily. Just be sure to leave an air gap to reduce the risk of damping off. This fungal disease can cause seedlings to suddenly collapse, and alyssum is especially prone to it. Now, before you set the pot aside, please label it. It's easy to think you'll remember what you planted, but once you have a few pots going, you can easily lose track without labels. Now place the pot in a bright spot, but keep it out of direct sun until the seeds sprout. Depending on your location and the time of year, this can be indoors or outdoors. And then just keep checking on it regularly to make sure the soil doesn't get too dry. Alyssum typically germinates within 1 to 2 weeks. Remove the cover once the seedlings emerge. They won't need it anymore. As the seedlings get bigger, slowly increase their exposure to sunlight. If you started them indoors, you'll also soon want to move them outside, but it's best to wait until the risk of frost has passed. When getting young seedlings accustomed to outdoor conditions, do it gradually over several days. This way they can adjust to changes in light and temperature without stress. When you're ready to transplant your seedlings into their final positions, an ordinary kitchen spoon works great for lifting them. It's exactly the right size for small seedlings, and it slides cleanly under the roots, so the neighboring seedlings aren't disturbed. One thing that's great about Alyssum seedlings is that even if you started them in a single pot, you don't have to transplant all of them at the same time. Just take what you need for a particular spot and leave the rest in the original container. The remaining seedlings will continue to grow happily until you're ready for them. And here's one more tip before you plan out your seedlings. If your goal is to attract as many beneficial insects as possible, you'll get the best results by planting Alyssum in clusters. That's because beneficial insects like hoverflies rely heavily on both visual cues and scent when searching for food. A single Alyssum plant is fairly easy to miss. But when you group several plants together, both the visual signal and the scent become much stronger, which makes it easier for insects to locate your plants from a distance. So that's just something good to know. But of course, it's also perfectly okay to plant Alyssum on its own, or to combine it with other ornamental plants. Here we're combining an Alyssum seedling with a geranium. Once the seedling is in its new spot, give it a good watering to help everything settle in nicely. And now just keep an eye on the soil and make sure it doesn't dry out while the seedling is getting used to its new spot. Once established, sweet Alyssum is a very low-maintenance plant. It can even handle some drought. The one thing that may be worth doing mid-season is giving the plants a trim if they become leggy, or if flowering starts to slow down. To trim them, simply cut the plants back by about half. And within weeks, you should start seeing new blooms. At the end of the season, don't do any more trimming, even when they start to look leggy and ugly. If you just let them be, they will eventually go to seed. And you can then collect those seeds for planting next season. Or you can do absolutely nothing. Just leave the seed heads alone, and the seeds will fall to the ground once they're mature. And in spring, you'll start seeing new seedlings pop up in your garden, completely on their own. And that's really the beauty of sweet Alyssum. Once you've welcomed it into your garden, it can keep rewarding you year after year with blooms and fragrance, and of course, chemical-free pest control.